Welcome everybody to another episode of Banter on the Rocks. We got Tim here, my John Pina, myself here for another great episode. I'm gonna say I'm probably finally getting off the mend of getting sick. Still on some antibiotics. Had to go to urgent care on Friday because I couldn't swallow food or anything. But
Oh, maybe you had what
doing
I
a
had.
maybe I did.
Wow.
Got it from up north, traveled through the air system.
There it is.
Somehow, but doing a lot better now. So kiddo's doing a lot better too. So that I think that for me that's the big thing. But we're excited for another great episode today. On today's episode, we're going to talk, as always, NFL. I think it's our bread and butter. We'll talk about our teams, few surprises of what we've seen this week, and also we'll bring up some Heisman talk. We had the Heisman awarded this past weekend, so give our little takes on that. Then we'll go into some WNBA talk, and we're going to talk a little bit about Caitlin Clark. She was awarded Times Athlete of the Year, and there's been a lot of feedback from a lot of people, some good, some bad. So we're sort of going to give our takes, our thoughts on that. And then we're going to go into a few things not sports related. We're going to talk a little bit about airlines traveling. It's the holiday season. Next week is Christmas, so during this time of the year, a lot of people are traveling by plane, by car, by train. So a little bit about airline traveling, some of our stories, good and or bad. And also, maybe for me, asking Tim some tips about traveling with kids since I have a small one now. Tim's done it a few times, so getting some of those thoughts and tips. And then we're also going to talk about the some drones over New Jersey these last few weeks. There's a bunch of drones, hovering above New Jersey, and there's a lot of stories of what they can be. So we'll have that discussion, and anything else that we could come up,
Bring him back. Just kidding.
bring it back, just bring it back the hair for for a few
Yeah.
segment.
Right.
But we'll discuss a lot more, and anything else that we could come up during our time talking. Um, but before we continue with the episode, some of our housekeeping, we want to share about finding the good brand. We are brand ambassadors with Find the Good. Every time you purchase with them, you give back to 10% goes back to Mental Health of America organization. So it goes back to mental health to help out. And I would say during this time of the year, it is really tough for a lot of people because of the holidays. Some families missing some people due to mental health, things that have occurred in their lives, their families' lives. So it's a good way to give back to the mental health organization to help out a lot of these people out in the world. And if you use our code Banner 805, you will also get 10% off your purchase. So you get 10% off your purchase, give 10% back, and you get some nice gear, hat, sweater, shirt. It's getting chilly. Like Tim has mentioned, I wear my sweater every day that it's not dirty because it's very comfortable, keeps me warm.
Yep.
So use the link in our episode description to go to the store. They're always stocking up on new items. So, find the good today. Holidays are coming up, so hopefully everybody's finding the good in their days. Um, but now we'll continue with our episode and we'll get started with our banter drinks of the week. And for myself, because I am on antibiotics and the doctor told me to take it easy, I am just sticking with some water today. Don't want to mix it, get a little too kooky with um antibiotics and alcohol. So gonna take another week off before I go back to some delicious drinks, but gonna stick with water today.
Are you tapping a well or we
It's filtered Brita water.
Hey, there it is. Very nice.
Yes.
And because I finished my meds before the last pod, it's a glorious feeling to
Yeah.
John. I'm sure you're on the home stretch. Good for you.
Yeah.
Having just going gin and juice.
Nice.
I think Snoop released a new song recently, I believe,
Okay.
with Sting. I don't know if it's new, but they performed it and it was the first time I heard it. So gin and juice, thinking about Snoop.
Snoop.
Shout out
Yep.
Snoop. But love it. Delicious.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, it's always good to have some drinks and But yeah, we'll get started and we'll go into the NFL and we'll start with maybe some of our team check-ins. And I can start with my Ravens. Um, this week we won. I'm gonna say I'm not surprised. We should have won. If we would have lost, I might have had a totally different attitude today. Losing to the Giants, guaranteed win. I will say. I hate to say it to the Giants fans. It's a guaranteed win when we play you, but what I will say from what I saw from the game, defense is still a question mark for me. You know, we let up some big plays, some unnecessary penalties to give the Giants a chance to score. I think we could have maybe shut them out if we would have played great defense. Um, so I hope we can start figuring that out because there's only, what is it, 3 weeks left in the season. And then,
Yeah.
most likely we're not going to get a first round bye. So we got to be ready for these playoffs because if we look at all these teams are ready. You know, the Bills are a scary team. Josh Allen, uh, kudos to you,
Hmm.
Josh Allen. We're fans of you. You've
Yeah.
helped us, our fantasy
Big
team
time.
win. So, I'm a fan of Josh Allen when he's not playing my team because of fantasy, but Josh Allen, KC still winning. A lot of teams are winning. And I think the other just take with the Ravens for me, Derrick Henry. Gonna put him on a milk carton because he's been missing these last few games. Not doing much. Not the Derrick Henry we saw. And I think I brought it up after that first game with the Chiefs is we have to stick to what we're good at, and that's the run game. We have to give Derrick Henry the ball. I could see why they might be avoiding it a bit because we're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot if we win the next few games. And Derrick Henry's going to be a big part of it, and we don't want to see him get injured. But at the same time, we need to get a good, that high seating for the home field advantage because it really always does come into play. So I put that out in Baltimore, milk cartons, Derrick Henry. Where is he? We need him. Um, but what else have you seen from the Ravens, Tim? Anything?
Shout out Mark Andrews. I think he set the touchdown mark, right, for
He did.
Ravens
Yeah.
franchise history. So beat out was it Jamal Lewis, I believe,
Hmm.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. So props to him. Storied career, obviously. He's a phenomenal tight end and kind of had a rejuvenation after a slow start to the year.
Hmm.
And yeah, as far as I mean, the biggest takeaway, lately I feel
Hmm.
like is, as you mentioned, Derrick Henry.
Hmm.
One because he's on our fantasy team, and
Yeah.
it's lackluster amount of points lately. He's obviously he's still averaging a decent amount of
Hmm.
yards per
He
carry,
is.
but just not. I mean, 14 touches on the game. Maybe that was just the game itself
Hmm.
kind of out of hand against the Giants, but. Do you feel like it's more of a strategic thing towards the end of the year, kind of as you guys are getting into the playoffs to kind of save him for that, or do you think it's something else?
I think it might be strategic because I try to put myself in Harbaugh's shoes of how can I take care of Henry and how can I maybe avoid an injury because at this time last year we lost Mark Andrews to that broken leg,
Hmm.
before the playoffs, which I think did affect us a bit. So I think it's strategic. I also think it was the Giants. I don't think they wanted to play as hard, save a little bit because, like I say, I hate to say it, Giants aren't really a team to be scared of if you're a playoff contention team. So, um, I think it was a little bit of both for them.
For sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I kind of thought the same. And I guess it's a weekly check-in now. Justin Tucker, how are we
Uh,
doing? Better
I'm
game,
okay
or
with
I didn't
Justin.
really see.
I'm
Okay.
okay with him after this game. He did this decent. I don't think he missed anything.
Okay.
Knock on wood. Hopefully he got that out of his system. He's back to the old JT, but like I say, it is something down the line we're gonna have to see how he does.
For sure. Yeah, and also, I know we kind of briefly discussed it, I believe, a couple episodes ago, but Rashad Bateman,
Hmm.
dude's still balling.
He
Dude's
is.
looking great. He's
Hmm.
catching a ton his way. He's making big plays. I think he had what, a 40-yard touchdown
Yeah,
perhaps.
two TDs this last weekend.
Yep. Yeah,
So
he's killing it.
yeah. I think he's gonna be a big factor for our offense because Zay Flowers, still a great receiver. Like I say, Mark Andrews, great tight end, but I think Bateman's is gonna be that one X factor that could really win us a game because these defenses know which receivers they got to cover, and that opens up Bateman. And I think Lamar now has that trust with Bateman to throw to him. So I'm excited to see them continue to develop. And like I say, for me, defense, I just want the defense just to get a little bit just a little bit better. Get that, you know, core group really on par, not making mistakes. So
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for you guys is still that
yeah.
defensive bunch. That's
Hmm.
offense, seems to be clicking. Everything seems good
Hmm.
there. It's just the defense that can let up a lot to,
Yeah.
a lot of receivers. And
Hmm.
you guys are a little bit better against the run game, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, we're
Okay.
a lot better against the run game. It's the passing
Yep.
game where we get burnt a lot. Like I say, we gave up that PI to Malik Neighbors that got them to the 1 yard line, and that's how they
Yep.
scored one of their touchdowns. So we can't be giving up those type of mistakes, during the playoffs because these other teams they're going to take more advantage of us than the Giants could have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. A lot more than what Tim Boyle can do,
Yeah,
huh?
a
Just
lot
feed
more.
neighbors is their
Yeah,
motto over there
yep.
at this point. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
he's looking good.
but yeah, that's Ravens. 49ers. Let's check in on them.
Uh, you know, um, Not a whole lot to write home about. Scored a whopping 6 points this past week. Looked real solid, kind of a sloppy game. Sloppy game on the Rams side as well.
Mhm,
Still, we lost though, and it was ugly, and got uglier with the
mhm,
Devondre Campbell situation, where he did not want to be subbed back into the game because Greenlock came back. He was healthy. Everybody's very pumped up and
mhm.
excited about his appearance since he tore his Achilles, and
Yeah.
I guess everybody but Devondre Campbell. He went down with an injury. Um,
Mhm.
Greenlaw went down with an injury.
Yeah.
Then we called upon Devondre Campbell to come in and
Mhm,
kind of resume his position, and he refused to go into the game. I guess it kind of
mhm,
started in the second quarter. Third quarter came around after halftime, and things escalated. And
mhm.
obviously, the team kind of turned on him. We saw that a
Yeah.
lot in press game, post game conferences. And the biggest thing I heard, which I wish I didn't see too much footage on it. I don't know if there's any, but John Lynch kind of turned into football player
I
John Lynch,
I
got
heard.
fired up and kicked him off the sideline.
Yeah.
And I guess, he really got fired up.
Hmm.
And it kind of speaks a lot to maybe who John Lynch is.
Hmm.
And he seems to be a great mold for the franchise, being a previous player,
Yeah.
knowing how other players could feel if somebody quit on your team like that. So I really appreciate him kind of
Hmm.
going back into that form and being more than just a GM and turning into a player also,
Hmm.
and just ripping him and saying, get off the sideline if you don't want to be here.
Hmm.
Luckily, the 49ers found a way to suspend him for the rest of the season so that way we don't have to pay him. If we would have
Yeah.
released him, we still would have owed him. So at least that saves on,
Yeah.
budget wise. Um, what are your thoughts on that situation, John?
My thoughts is I think it sucks for the team. I think
Mhm.
what he did just isn't part of that game. Um, I saw a lot of the feedback from players on how it's just disrespectful. Like once you do that, you pretty much have to get cut. You're done. You know, I don't know if any other NFL team will sign him just because when you show something like that, how can you bring someone that like that into your locker room to be a main guy? Because that's the goal for all these NFL players. And I sort of thought about Anthony Richardson's, that situation he had where he sort of subbed himself out, which I think it was a little different the way it happened, but still, we saw what happened to AR when he did it. He was out for a few games. He lost his starting job. So I think it's unfortunate. It it sucks. I don't think any player should do it. I'm like, if you're getting paid those millions of dollars, you got to go out there and give everything for your team, even if you're not in the playoffs, because I hate to say it, 49ers aren't in the playoffs, and I get why maybe he didn't want to put too much into it when there's nothing to fight for, but still you're fighting for those colors you wear on your jersey, and you can't ever give up because that's not the way the game goes. So I unfortunate for the 49ers for him. He got what he deserved. He's not going to get paid now. So hopefully he learns his lesson, but I don't know what's going to come up with his future.
Yeah, yeah, that's the big question mark, at least for Devondre Campbell. I think
Hmm.
a lot of teams obviously will probably stir away from that.
Hmm.
And, just knowing that he did this once and what he's capable of possibly doing again.
Yeah.
And, a big thing with this is like guys like Shavarius Ward spoke on this post game,
Hmm.
and he's dealt with the loss of a child this
Hmm.
season and the impact that had on his life. And obviously there's a lot more of the life for
Hmm.
these guys than just football.
Football. Yeah.
But he's still out there
Hmm.
and he's fighting through it. He even said, there's plenty of times where, he doesn't want to be there, but he
Hmm.
still shows up for his team and,
Hmm.
he's there, he's fighting. And then to have a guy, I don't know, Campbell's personal life, but
Hmm.
as far as what I've seen and known, it seems to be like a positional issue,
Yeah.
whether he's starting or not. And it's so silly.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I think he's paid upwards of $5 million, I believe. And
Hmm.
then you don't show up to work anywhere
Yeah.
else, you're fired. I mean, it's
Yeah.
on the spot. So he getting what he deserves. I hate to say this whole conversation in general is where the Niners season is at.
Hmm.
It's really brutal. Another week of kind of moving along from that, another week of humbling for Debo.
Hmm.
Again, non-existent, gets opportunity with the ball, doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Humble pie, no doubt, is
Yeah.
what he's being force fed lately. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's also just a brutal situation.
Hmm.
Any other thoughts on the Debo situation, John?
With the Debo Samuel, I had the question for you. But
Hmm.
I saw some of his plays, that easy catch that would have been a touchdown.
Yep.
He gets paid to do that. Missing that, I don't think there's an excuse being Debo Samuel. So I think the one question I had was, do you think Debo's done as a 49er after this year, Tim? The way things are shaping out, do you think they're
Yeah.
gonna look to trade him? Or, I don't think they'll release him, but I saw a story or a post somewhere where I think it was a few years ago. They could have traded him to the Jets for the first round pick that it was Garrett Wilson.
Hmm.
You know, do do the 49ers regret not doing that? I don't know.
Maybe at that point in time, no. He
Hmm.
was still, in the midst of a high point of his career. Who knows where he goes from here? I know I mentioned last week he's often injured. I
Hmm.
don't know if those have taken a career toll on him. He doesn't look to be the same. I know this is just a
Yeah.
down year in general, but you'd figure you'd find some type of like, what's his excuse?
Yeah.
He's out there playing. Purdy's out there playing. Kittle's out there playing. Jennings is out there playing. They're all performing.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's what's your excuse,
Hmm.
Devo? And yeah, I think time's a ticking. I wouldn't shy away from wanting a trade with him. I think that now's the time to do it. Say
Hmm.
things get worse. I don't know how much worse they can get, to be honest
Hmm.
with you, but say things do get worse. At least now he has some type of value to a team.
Hmm.
He's still versatile, I suppose. He still takes carries here and there, go for about a yard or two, and and that's just kind of what you get for him. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's good. A big topic that we kind of talked about last week too was the Purdy situation
Hmm.
and the contract eligibility. We got a lot of responses on
We
YouTube.
did.
Thank you for all those responses because I feel like they were great. There was one in particular that kind of stood out to me that sign him for 10 million a year if he proves that he can throw a deep ball, sign him up for 25 a year.
Hmm.
And I thought that seems pretty good too. Um, just kind of giving him some type of compensation. It seems
Hmm.
like it seems like teams don't know how to play against them right now,
Yeah.
especially with the lack of threats with injuries. This team just doesn't have a whole lot of power to it at the moment. So,
Yeah.
you get what you have. I also think this, I don't know if this is going to be a hot topic or, something that maybe a lot of people would agree with. I really wouldn't mind drafting a quarterback, just to
Okay.
have, like, look, Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant when we
Hmm.
drafted him. We didn't really know. Shanahan, I'm sure, and Lynch had, good feel for his personality and everything through interviews, but it's what he turned into. So if there's a ton of quarterbacks in this draft. So
Hmm.
I think it's worth a shot. I don't know where his contract talks are going to
Hmm.
go. I Evidently somebody in his camp has already said upwards of 50, 60 million that he wants.
Oh,
He
no
wants to
way.
be top
Dang.
paid. He absolutely does. So,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm kind of surprised about, to be honest. That's coming out pretty early. But I guess they want to get ahead of it. So I again, I'll preface what I said last week. I don't want to pay him that much. As a fan, I don't want to see it. There's a lot to still be proved on his
Hmm.
end, but we'll see. But yeah, that's really it as far as the Niners go. Just nothing
Yeah.
great.
No, yeah, no, nothing great. I agree. I think, if you guys could give him something, a 1 year contract to prove himself, almost like what they did in Tampa with Baker, where it's a 1 year. Let's see what
Mhm.
you could do. If you prove yourself, we'll pay you, not the big money, but better money. I think that's what Purdy has to do. I know, I know Esteban, we sort of talked about it. He called me out for calling Purdy system quarterback, and I think my take is probably a lot more accurate right now. Just from what we've seen, and I think if Purdy could have performed a lot better these last few weeks when the Niners have been down, it'd be a whole different conversation. But what happened against the Rams, like it just shows. I think he isn't there yet. Um, the money wise, like I say, I think you guys have been burnt by some of these big contracts, some of these QB signings. So you guys need to be careful because, you know, you guys want to continue having a chance because I think something like this could you really hurt your future for Super Bowls. Like I think we're seeing it in Jacksonville right now with Trevor Lawrence, T-Law. I think that was we've talked about it. Big mistake. I think they signed her for the hair commercials, the hair endorsements,
Yep.
shampoo endorsements, but overall, Super Bowl wise, I don't see it happening, and there's so much money tied up in him. So I think 49ers have to make a big decision. Um, I did want to ask you, who do you want in the draft? Because you guys are going to have a better draft pick than normal years, not being in the playoffs. You mentioned QB. Any QB late rounds that, would be someone you would want your team to go for, or
Oof. I haven't done past like Cam Ward, which is really high up in the draft.
yeah.
I haven't done too much searching. I have can't think of his name at the moment. I've heard Notre Dame's quarterback thrown out there.
Hmm.
I've heard Wisconsin's quarterback thrown out there. The Georgia Tech's quarterback is
Hmm.
another one. He's athletic. I think he's 6'4", but runs like a 4.40.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
Sounds like Kaepernick
Hmm.
2.0, which I'd
Okay.
take any day of the week. That dude was electric.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of lean towards the Georgia Tech dude. I just think that sounds great. I'm just a big scrambling quarterback type
Yeah.
guy. I just feel like it opens up so much.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are a few. If we don't go quarterback, obviously I want to, O-linemen that are out there.
Hmm.
I listened to the radio this past week where they spoke on how we took Pearsall when we didn't really have a huge need at
Hmm.
receiver. And Pearsall's season obviously was derailed by what happened to him in the
Hmm.
offseason. And he just can't really shake off of a defender at the
Defend.
moment.
Hmm.
He's locked tight. So, but I guess there was a lineman who ended up going to Pittsburgh, I believe, that we could have probably gotten because he went about 15
Hmm.
picks after Pearsall. and he's one of the best rookie linemen
Hmm.
out there. So kind of a bummer. Lineman would be
Hmm.
good, but another one that it's a big name, Genty. If he's out
Hmm.
there, that's a good one.
And like if you were GM of the 49ers, Genty falls to you in the draft, he's there. Is it worth it? Do you think, having that type of running back as a backup to McCaffrey, to Jordan Mason, Garindo? Because, like I say, not to put salt more in McCaffrey and the Niner wounds, but this isn't the first McCaffrey injury. It's happened pretty much every other year. He has a year or two of injury ridden seasons, and then he comes back is like the number one player, but then he goes back to getting hurt. So Genty, a change of pace, would you pull the trigger on it?
100%. And here's
Yeah.
why. I have this all thought up in my head. I think John Lynch this offseason, because this is talked about a lot
Mhm,
too. Not just I know I've mentioned in the past myself, just based off of what I see with game flow and why we're
mhm,
losing these late leads or whatever. But if we drafted Genty, it would make Shanahan more inclined to split carries with McCaffrey, which at this
mhm.
point in his career he absolutely needs to.
Yeah.
He does not need 20 plus touches a game. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
You have a guy like Derrick Henry who's playing outrageously well and he only had 14 touches.
Hmm.
I think that's great method to the madness there.
Yeah.
I honestly do. And McCaffrey doesn't need 25, 30 touches at this point in his career. His
Hmm.
Achilles are worn down, obviously. He has calf issues, knee issues
Hmm.
now, you name it. So I think that provides that formality to it where you
Hmm.
split carries. And then also it will cause Shanahan to stop throwing the damn ball so much. It's talked about a lot where he gets
Yes.
so pass happy, and it drives me nuts because late in games we have a lead, and all we have to do is just burn some clock.
Burn some clock. Yep.
But no, let's pass 2 of 3 downs.
Hmm.
Like, why? Why? We don't have to. So yeah, and I would hope that drafting a guy like Genty would make him
Hmm.
inclined to do that because he's
Yeah.
an extraordinary talent.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
what we do.
Okay.
I like it.
Um, yeah. If you would draft Genty, and we'll talk a little bit about Montgomery because there are some big news with him.
Oh yeah.
But, Montgomery gives Sonic and Knuckles,
Hmm.
what would Genty and McCaffrey's nickname be?
Ooh. Um, I don't know. I don't want to give I would say like Batman and Robin, but you don't want to put like, Genty as a Robin. He's more than that. I don't know, maybe you go something at Avengers. Who's another good 1-2 punch, John?
That
Sonic
the
Knuckles is really good.
Yeah, like the one that came up in my mind, it was more comedic, and I was thinking Shake and Bake.
Oh, that's
So
good.
Talladega,
Yeah, Talladega Nights.
you
Yeah,
got
I
the
like
shake,
that.
and then you got the
Slingshot.
bake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Slingshot him. Hell
you
yeah. You have
need
maybe
that
two
one.
back formations.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Yeah. I like that a
Yep.
lot. Yeah, shake and bake
Yeah.
would be legit.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
it was just, thinking when you said you wanted him, I was like, all right, what's the duo nickname for for
Right.
that
Yeah.
for
No,
those
that's
two?
solid. If
Yeah.
we do, hey, God willing, if we draft Genty,
Hmm.
we gotta post something daily
Yeah.
about shake and bake and making
Shake
that the
and bake.
nickname. Yeah,
Yep.
that's so
Yeah.
good.
But almost like, McCaffrey Genty as a hope in the future. Right now we have that running back duo in the Lions of Sonic and Knuckles with Montgomery and Gibbs. And unfortunately
Mhm.
get or not Gibbs, Montgomery got hurt this last week and from what I read, MCL, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
requiring surgery, right?
Yeah, so he'll be out for the season. So it's an unfortunate injury for them. Um Do you think this injury is going to hurt their playoff run, Tim? Because this was one of the teams I think we both thought was going to be the team to beat.
Yes, 100%. I do. I, I know they have some decent running backs, I believe, behind
Hmm.
Montgomery, but I don't know. I know last week I'll reference what I talked about with the 49ers being a what could have been team. This feels
Hmm.
like a what could have been Lions team at this
Yeah.
point because they are absolutely decimated on with injuries. It's even less on the offensive front and more on the
Mm.
defensive front. And I
Defensive
know that
side,
they
yeah.
just lost another interior lineman, I believe,
Hmm.
to a torn ACL yesterday also. So brutal luck. Kind of stinks because I do really like Dan Campbell and I like
Hmm.
that team. That team's really fun to watch. But I think this hurts their hopes a lot.
Hmm.
And that defense, it's kind of turning into something kind of similar to the Bills, where you
Hmm.
you must outscore your opponent. I think the
Yeah.
Ravens kind of deal with this a bit too,
Hmm.
where it's pretty much just a foot race to the
Yeah.
finish line of points, and there's not a lot of defensive help at this point. I'm not positive, but I think Anzalone might be able to make it back for playoff
Hmm.
time, and that would be huge for them because he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, that's a gut punch. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it really hurts them. Like you mentioned, this is a team I think we saw this week that they need to outscore the other team to win games, which Jared Goff had a great game.
Oh
I think
yeah.
it was three TDs, but Josh Allen just is doing it better than anybody right now. So, and that's one of the teams, the teams in the NFC that you have to face. The Vikings today look pretty good. That's a team you're going to have to outscore that can outscore anybody. The Eagles, they played well this week. I'll give a little take in a bit about him, but so I think it's going to be their defense. I think this really hurts them. But I think this gives Gibbs that chance to sort of show he is the dominant back and one of the top running backs because I think Montgomery has taken a lot of touchdowns from, that as the running back on the team. So this is going to be a time for him to show that he is one of the better backs in this league, just like Bijan Robinson right now is showing he is that running back that they drafted, that high pick. So um I want to see what they do, but I think their playoff run is not going to be as long as we hope because of all these injuries, and I think Montgomery is going to be a big blow to them.
Completely agree. Yeah, no, it's in I talk about gut punches. This was another big one I
Hmm.
wanted to mention because I saw this right before we jumped on was um I guess the over under for yards, rushing yards for Montgomery this season was
Oh,
775 and a half, and
yeah,
he ended at 775 rushing yards.
yeah,
Uh that's that is brutal. I think you
uh,
almost have to like rewatch footage and see if he got an extra yard somewhere
and
because
a half yard
oh
somewhere just to push it.
man. Yeah, that's betting for you. But I am curious, moving on from the Lions, because that's obviously decimating for them, but sticking in the NFC,
Mhm.
what's your Eagles take?
So my Eagles take, I was going to bring it up last week because of what I saw, and I was going to
Mhm.
say Jalen Hurts isn't an elite QB because he wasn't throwing. We
Mhm.
saw the argument with AJ Brown a little frustrated, and from watching a few of the games, they're just running the ball, with Saquon, with the tush push, and Jalen Hurts is almost like early Lamar Jackson, where they were just using his legs, not having him throw too much. So it was one of my takes is they don't have trust in his arm. This week he threw a little bit more. He found AJ Brown, so I think they're just letting him go. But I still think there's some question marks with Jalen Hurts. I think there always has been, if I'm not mistaken, with him. I think also that's why in college he was, pushed down for Tua because of some of his abilities. So it was just one of those hot takes that I thought last week when I was watching one of the Eagles games. I'm like, they just don't trust Jalen Hurts. He doesn't have an arm. Like they just can't. If anybody could stop Saquon and the run, they're gonna have to rely on Jalen Hurts, and I don't know if he could win the big games. So it was just a little bit of my hot take this week. They sort of proved it wrong, but like I say, it's just one game. Their schedule the rest of the year is a little easier. I don't think they're playing too many tough teams, so I think he isn't going to show too much. But in the playoffs, like I say, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to show it. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I think that's a really good take. And it seems like it's caused some internal issues with AJ Brown,
Hmm.
showing his frustration with things and kind of prefacing the within the team issues. There's a big Jalen Carter issue this
Hmm.
past weekend, I
Yeah.
believe, where he did something Sirianni did not like. I believe it was like a punch
Yeah.
during a block or during a play.
Yeah.
And there was some a lot of back and forth.
Hmm.
Sirianni obviously trying to step up as a coach and put him in a spot, but then Jalen Carter is trying to laugh him off. I don't know. It kind of speaks to maybe a little bit of some immaturity there with Carter. And I just think that dynamic of getting into a tussle like that and then, you know,
Hmm.
not really just listening to your coach in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know that dynamics, and then pairing that with AJ Brown saying, I know they've kind of talked through it. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
looking too deep into this, but I don't know. It creates a weird dynamic for a team.
It does, and I think it starts with the coach. I think we've talked about Nick Sirianni not
Hmm.
being the coach for it's not really a great coach.
Yeah.
And some of his moves aren't that professional for a coach. Jalen Carter, I did see it. The disrespect, it's not something he should do as a professional, but what I will say is, he went down in the draft for some immaturity in college. He should have
Mhm.
been one of the top picks, and because of some of his off the field issues, he fell to the Eagles, which great talent, but we could see where the problem's going to be is keeping him in place because I think the play he had that like punch was a fourth down play. So, he gave
Mhm.
them fresh set of downs and like I say, in the playoffs, you can't be having those mistakes. Those mistakes are just
Yep.
what are going to lose you the game. We saw it with the Ravens and Zay Flowers, his taunting, all that, that you could say that lost us the game to KC last year. So I think the Eagles they're a great team. I think they need to get it together to be able to make it far. But like I said, I think coaching, I think that's going to be a change that we may see this year, depending on how it ends, how their season ends.
Yeah. And we saw Big Dom sighting during it all too.
Yep.
Shout out Big Dom. What a weird, that's just a weird position with a franchise. Do
Mhm.
other teams have like a security dude that just like steps in like that?
Uh,
Uh,
I I think they probably do, but I don't think they make it as visible as the
okay.
Eagles do.
Yeah.
I don't, it's almost like that
Yeah.
for the Rams, the guy that pulls Sean McVay back, is it?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That
maybe
type of
that's
person.
it. Yep.
It,
Hmm.
there's always someone on the team. It's just I think some teams just try to keep it hidden and not sort of out there because like I say, it makes noise. It brings unwanted attention to your sideline when you know, Belichick probably had some of those type of coaches, and he probably didn't want, kept it hidden because he didn't want that attention with all the Spygate, all the Deflategate that they were doing. So, you know,
Yep.
Eagles probably don't care what people do on their sidelines, so that's why they let him do what he wants.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Maybe maybe just the security's needed. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
good for them though.
It's
Um,
Philadelphia. It's a little rough out there, so you need it.
that's true. Yeah, maybe it's a lot to do with the crazy fans sometimes too.
Yeah.
Especially when Sirianni gets outspoken with them. I know that we talked about that in the
Yeah.
past. They're daring over there.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just kind of keeping within the football realm here, John. Big news over the weekend, Travis Hunter, Heisman Trophy winner.
Hmm.
I know we kind of had him as a favorite early on. We had a
Hmm.
good mix of Ash and Genty. I want to hear your overall thoughts on
Yeah.
Travis Hunter winning, and do you feel like somebody else deserved it more?
Yeah, my thoughts. I think he deserved it. I think the two-way player he is and what he's done for multiple years, he not many people do it. I've been hearing him saying he wants to do it in the NFL. I doubt he will be able to do it because it is a lot more faster paced game. But I what I'll say is I'm not mad about it. I think he deserved it. I think he was a great player this year. I still think Genty should have won it. I think the records, the numbers he had, I saw, like I said, it's what I always see on social media, a post where Genty was first in all his categories, where Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball, I think his highest ranking with touchdowns was like eighth. So, numbers not as high as Genty, Genty took the Boise State to the college football playoffs, number three seed, you know, taking their lead, their conference. So, you know, I I think Genty should have won it just based off stats. I think Travis Hunter got a little bit more because of name, college, Deion Sanders, but also for being the two-way player. I think if Travis Hunter just played wide receiver or cornerback, I don't think he would have won it. Um, so those are my thoughts with Travis Hunter and who I think should have won. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I can see why Travis Hunter won it,
Hmm.
but I also think it turned into a bit of a popularity contest. I think Genty was just as deserving, if not probably more.
Hmm.
Because speaking to exactly what you mentioned with the records he set, how many yards he rushed for, he was absolutely incredible. And on top of that, um, Travis Hunter wasn't even the best receiver, arguably,
Hmm.
this season. Nick Nash, San Jose State, shout out
Hmm.
to San Jose State. Just quick little read of his stat line this season: 104 catches, 1,382 receiving yards, and 16 touchdowns.
Hmm.
Um, Dominant,
Yeah,
just an absolute beast. And a lot of people are actually mentioning, I believe in I think was it the Maxwell Trophy or a
maybe.
wide
Hmm.
receiver
Hmm.
award? A lot of people are saying Nick Nash got robbed because of the performance he had. So
Hmm.
again, awfully tough to compete with a two-way player. It's very rare.
Hmm.
Deion Sanders is obviously a
Hmm.
very prominent one. Um, so yeah, it comes with just the popularity of it all. Again, not surprised Travis Hunter won. I think he's very deserving. Not
Hmm.
taking that away from him whatsoever. But Genty, yeah, he's the dude.
Yeah,
And then yeah, but overall in agreement with you.
yeah. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up, I saw the voting. Cam Ward, least amount of least amount of votes, especially first place votes. I think Dylan Gabriel had more than him. And like I said, for me, not don't want to knock Dylan Gabriel because you know me, Tim. I've been a Dylan Gabriel fan since the beginning of the
Oh yeah.
season.
hmm
I've liked him. Think he's a great QB. But do you feel like that was a little bit of disrespect to the game Cam Ward brought this season, to the stats he brought as a quarterback?
Definitely. Yeah, because I feel like, especially with Miami, they've lacked a quarterback for a long time. I feel like their defense
Hmm.
has always been good lately. Obviously, if you go back to like early 2000s,
Hmm.
90s Miami, like they're just amazing on both ends of the ball. But lately, it just seems like they've lacked QB play there.
Yeah.
And for him to step in and make them like super relevant again and like how easy he made it look. Um, we've spoken very highly of Cam Ward this whole season. Yeah, he absolutely deserved more first place votes, but I think it's probably the team factor that came
Hmm.
into it. You look at Dylan Gabriel's record
Yeah.
and might speak a lot to the team around him.
Hmm.
But again, I guess the win will come in with Cam Ward when he's drafted higher than Dylan
Yeah.
Gabriel. So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah. I think Cam Ward's going to be one of those top QBs. I think he's already probably could be a number one pick. I think it's between him and Sanders,
hmm
because it's going to be a QB, I think, going number one. So um, he's still going to win with a paycheck. So,
Yeah.
not having the award, probably, I don't think he probably thought he was going to win. I think he probably thought he was going to be a little higher in the voting. Um, I think he could have had a better chance if Miami would have maybe gone undefeated, been in the playoffs. But yeah, I think that hurt him a lot. Um, but we'll see. But I think the other thing I was sort of going to ask, because you sort of brought it up, the popularity contest. Do you think NIL deals also have to do with Heisman winners nowadays, with NIL being so big in college footballs that they want those bigger names to win just because it brings more money in?
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I think money talks, and I think it always will. Yeah, yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that's valid. You bring,
Mm.
I mean, you spoke to it with Deion Sanders.
Hmm.
Obviously he brings a lot of deals into play.
Yeah.
He has his own shoe that just recently came out, or is it a remake of a shoe he previously
I,
had?
I
I
I think
forget.
it's a remake of his like old classic cleat that he would wear.
But like so many players are
Hmm.
NFL, college are wearing that shoe this
Hmm.
year. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, I think absolutely it makes it more pronounced.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think thinking about it, I think it's gonna be that type of award where it's gonna sort of be, yes, based on stats, but also a popularity contest. Because like I say, you got to build these NIL deals. You need to get more money into college football because they're paying a lot of these kids now a lot of money. So you got to find ways to make that income. And I think giving the big names these Heisman trophies, it's gonna help. So
Yep, yep,
yeah.
absolutely. And moving along here, John.
Hmm.
Speaking of popular,
Hmm.
big news, obviously. We'll move along to Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I know you prefaced it in the preview of the episode,
Hmm.
but Caitlin Clark, Times Athlete of the Year,
Hmm.
has brought a lot of attention to that award and
Hmm.
also WNBA basketball, women's sports in general. I want to get your thoughts, just starting out here with Caitlin Clark, being on the cover.
Yeah, I think Stephen A said it. I agree with it. I don't have any issue with her being athlete of the year. Um, I think she's done so much just for the league, and this is just from my perspective because I'll be honest, before Caitlin Clark joining the WNBA, I truly did not watch the WNBA. I started watching more women's basketball when Caitlin Clark was at Iowa, just because of the name, what she was doing, how she was changing just a game of women's college basketball. So I think for me it was just I I'm okay with it because of what she's done. And one of the big things for me that I like looked up is just views for her and games that Caitlin Clark played in. Um, she got pretty much, all the games she played in, there was 1.178 million views on TV. That's not even in the stadium where they had to go into bigger arenas just to make way for the Caitlin Clark effect, where all other games that didn't include Caitlin Clark, it was only 394,000 views. So that speaks volumes in my mind to the effect she has. And, I keep on hearing a lot of stuff from other players that it's not just Caitlin Clark, but I just look at what I see and I do think it's Caitlin Clark that did so much, for that league.
Absolutely. She's a trendsetter.
Hmm.
Very similar to like what Steph did, with the NBA
Hmm.
and basketball in general. The three ball became so prevalent with
Hmm.
him and much more than it was ever before. And
Hmm.
I think Caitlin Clark is doing something very similar to, previous, you know,
Yeah.
generational talents. And a lot of I feel like what I feel about it is has nothing to do with the other players of the WNBA
Hmm.
because you bring up somebody like I'll talk on Angel Reese. I
Hmm.
think Angel Reese is a phenomenal basketball player.
Yeah.
She's done incredible with rebounds. She is consistent in points. I think she set a double double record,
Hmm.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, this in her rookie year, which is
Hmm.
incredible. She's phenomenal. She's brought a ton of, stardom to WNBA and
Hmm.
women's sports in general as well. But I feel like Caitlin Clark has maybe just done a little bit more, I
Hmm.
guess, is it? But again, it's not taking away from what anybody else has done before. And
Hmm.
I um I feel like I watched a lot of like women's college basketball back when Diana Taurasi was at
Yeah.
Connecticut. I thought that she was an incredible talent. She
Hmm.
was fun to watch. Candace Parker, I believe I had a kind of similar viewership with, maybe not quite as much as Diana, but
Yeah.
when she was, I believe, at Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
she was super fun to watch. And then Brittany Griner actually brought back a little bit too when she went to
Yeah.
Baylor. She started dunking, and it was like, wow,
Yeah.
okay, like we're getting dunkers in the WNBA and
Yeah.
college women's basketball. So, but again, it's based off of trends and
Hmm.
just this talent that is above, you know, the rest. And maybe it's something that's a little bit more exciting to watch. Angel Reese setting a rebound record. Not a lot of people tune in to watch rebounds. People
Yeah.
tune in to watch, three pointers these
Three
days. Caitlin
pointers. Yeah.
Clark's great at that. Assists, she's set a record with.
Hmm.
And, everybody loves to see a good passer. I was fascinated with Jason Williams back in the day, Steve Nash,
Yeah.
the elbow pass with
Hmm.
Jason Williams. Like, again, Caitlin Clark isn't quite doing stuff like that, but
Yeah.
like, again, passing's more fun.
Hmm.
We don't, I feel like I don't really talk about Shaq's 20 rebounds he just had or
Yeah.
Kevin Garnett's rebounds, whatever. But um, again, it's brought a lot of notoriety and just like viewership to the sport. And I did look up just even WNBA, not just viewership, but attendance to these
Hmm.
games. This year they averaged almost 10,000 people in the stands
Yeah.
at every game. The year before, it was only at 6,600. Year before that, it was at 5,700. I'm sure it decreased a lot more
Hmm.
even before that. So
Yeah.
the trends are there, and the jump between just one season increased over 3,000 people in
Hmm.
stands. It's bringing a lot. It's going to bring bigger contracts to these
Yeah.
ladies. It's going to bring more TV deals.
Hmm.
Look where the NBA's gotten. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal, and she brings it. So it's great. As being, and also being a girl dad,
Yeah.
if my daughter ever wanted to play ball, hey, it's
Yeah.
setting her up for a great future in sports too. So
Yeah.
I love it.
No,
I think
yeah.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I sort of had the same take like you mentioned, Steph Curry, what Steph brought to the NBA, he changed the landscape of the NBA. It used to be the centers, pick and rolls, dominate the rim, and now it's shooting threes and you see, all these players coming. They're just shooters, Trey Young, LaMelo Ball, just shooters, and that's what all these new basketball players are. And I think what Caitlin Clark is doing is changing that for the women's game, where all these females and girls, they're going to start shooting from the logo and they're going to get really good at shooting from the logo, and it's going to change the
Hmm.
game. And, I think you just have to admit that Caitlin Clark is changing it. And like you say, it's a trend right now. It's the trend that she's setting. And I think it's coming at a great time that they're getting a lot more recognition, a lot more viewers, and getting more of that news. And with this all athletes time of the year, I think one of the things I sort of wanted to bring up with the interview with Washington Mystic owner Sheila Johnson, sort of saying, that it should have been the whole WNBA on the cover because they're the league of the year. I understand where she's coming from a bit, but at the same time, I'm like, do you know what the award is called? It's athlete of the year, not league of the year. Athlete. So you have to pick one person. Yeah, who else was on the list that maybe could have been more deserving, but who did make a big change was Caitlin Clark. And what I was also thinking is like, if you look at League of the Year, I'm not going to put WNBA there. I think there's a lot of leagues that are making more money or getting a lot more viewers. What I would call the WNBA is most improved League of the Year because of the big
Yep.
changes, So, because the one example I have is with the MLS. MLS is one of the lead. not one of the least watched soccer leagues in the world, but not the most popular like in Europe. But because of Messi coming over, it got that trend and it was a big boom for the first year, 2 years that Messi was here. And we have to give the credit to Messi for all those eyes on MLS, MLS getting more money, MLS getting the that Apple TV deal, because without Messi's name, I don't think it would have happened. And we can't say these soccer players can't say it wasn't just Messi, it was all of us. Let's be real, let's be honest. It was Messi. It was that big name. It's gonna happen again if Cristiano Ronaldo comes to the MLS. We're gonna get that big trend, that big boom, and we can't say it was the MLS, all the other players. They do amazing. They really do bring a lot of the action, but that big name is what brings the attention to that league. And that's what I think is sort of with the WNBA is, I think it is all these females, they're all playing great. AJ Wilson, Kelsey Plum, there's so many great players. Diana Taurasi, I remember watching her, you know, generational players, great players. But what Caitlin Clark is bringing right now is making that change for the WNBA, and it just needs to be accepted, I think, and not a big racing the way I feel like a lot of these other reports I've seen talking about, the white privilege. I don't think it's that. It's just this is the truth of it. It's she's making a big change. I don't think it matters about her skin, but I saw it in the MLS with Messi, and that's the way I sort of look at this. It's that one big name that's making the change.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, even if you look in the past, there's been plenty of opportunity provided to other players.
Hmm.
Also, backyard sports, backyard
Hmm.
basketball, for example. Lisa Leslie was in that game.
Yeah.
She was incredible to watch too. There's been big
Hmm.
names previously, so
Hmm.
yeah, there's no there. I feel like there's no judgment in my eyes, maybe
Hmm.
in your eyes too, John. But it's just I think just looking at the whole scope of things and just the talent that
Hmm.
is now brought into women's sports and just everything in general has just brought an uptick in things. So,
Yeah.
and that's what she's being recognized for. And also
Hmm.
another name out there is Sabrina
Hmm.
Ionescu.
Yeah.
She has had a great career, and she partnered with Curry in the 3-point
Hmm.
competition this last year, or went up against him. Sorry, not
Yeah.
partnered, but played against him. So, uh, there's much more that the NBA is even trying to
Hmm.
incorporate. So, it's all good stuff. I think regardless, this is good for the WNBA. I think
Hmm.
it benefits everybody. And it recognizes the league and what it's becoming, which is
Yeah.
great. I still see clips. There's, I don't know her first name, but her last name, I believe, is Cardoza. She plays with Notre Dame women's basketball.
Hmm.
She's fun to watch. I
Yeah.
believe she's a point guard. She hit a game-winning three the other day. Like,
Hmm.
great talent, fun to watch.
Hmm.
It's good stuff. I think it's all
Yeah.
good, and it brings a name to
Hmm.
WNBA. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see where the WNBA goes. I saw a little bit of the draft of the Golden State Valkyrie. So excited
mm,
for a new team. You got that team now
yeah,
up there.
I'm getting
So,
emails for season tickets.
all right.
Yeah, I sure
Nice.
am. I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
gotta look into prices. But if Ariel was a bit older, my daughter,
Hmm.
I'd consider it, because it'd be kind of fun just to, heck, maybe even just try going to a game. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So, it'll be interesting where the WNBA goes. Like I say, I think Caitlin Clark's just changing the scope for all these other young girls, kids in college going, and we're gonna start seeing these Steph type shooters, in the WNBA, which I truly think is gonna be really great for basketball. So,
100%.
yeah.
Completely agree. I think it's great for multiple things, but yeah, great topic. I think
Hmm.
that's yeah, good. And then I guess kind of moving along here, John.
Hmm.
Time of year, travel is
Yeah.
big. You referenced this preview again, and airline travel in particular.
Yeah.
Um, as we mentioned, holidays, big travel time. There's a lot that's kind of gone on, whether it's in Capitol Hill with
Hmm.
discussions with airlines about fees and things like that. I want to get your feel for things on airlines with hidden fees and yeah.
Yeah, when I saw that Capitol Hill, those clips about their hidden fees, I was like, finally someone's bringing it up. I hope they do something about it. I doubt they probably will because there's so many other things to deal with. But like the big thing for me is between Spirit and Frontier within like a 2-year margin, $26 million was paid out to their employees for to their gate agents to catch people with oversized bags that were probably just like a centimeter too big. And I just think that is so ridiculous. These airlines like that are supposed to save you money are costing you more than some of these more well-known airlines like American Airlines, Delta, where you don't have to pay for, a carry-on or they're not as strict. But I was just like, when I saw that, I was like, man, someone's finally bringing it up because I've always had the same feelings. When I book, if I see Spirit, Frontier, some of these smaller airlines, I just ignore them. I'm not gonna book with them. I hate to say it. I'll pay more money to go on a different airline. I've had my experiences just once, and once was enough. But I think it's insane what these airlines are doing. I think it's a criminal act, pretty much, because like I said, they're supposed to be saving money when they're charging people so much more. Um, but what are your thoughts, Tim?
Yeah. I feel like it feels like employee upcharge, but you don't
Yeah.
have a say in the upcharge.
Hmm.
I remember my very first job was at a movie theater over where we all
Yeah.
lived down in SoCal. And and the big thing was, somebody asked for a medium popcorn. It's like, oh, okay, for 50 cents more, do you want to upgrade it to a char or a large
Yeah.
popcorn? And then obviously they could say no, they could say yes. Hey, you get kudos
Hmm.
for if they say yes. They
Yeah.
they count that as a point for you, blah blah blah, and you get
Yeah.
a bonus or a prize at the end of the month, whatever.
Yeah.
But that you have a say in. If an
Hmm.
airline says your bag's a centimeter oversized or
Hmm.
it's a little too heavy by maybe zero point 0.1 pounds or an ounce or whatever, it's you don't have a say. You just have to
Hmm.
pay their fee on it, which stinks
Yeah.
because like you argue with an airline these days, it's like you're kicked out, you're put on the no-fly list, and you can't
Hmm.
fly in general. So, um, obviously you'd have to escalate awfully far for that, but
Yeah.
it's but in general, it's really lousy,
Hmm.
and they just need to be upfront on their freaking prices. If
Hmm.
if they're gonna go through and upcharge consistently and get to the point
Hmm.
where it's equaling 26 million plus dollars,
Hmm.
you're doing that a lot. Just
Hmm.
like don't sell a $50 ticket then. Just
Yeah.
say it's $100 and don't be so freaking
That's
strict on your dang bag size.
yeah.
Just say what it is.
Yeah.
They look for that because they know that they're undercharging. That's why they're probably underwater with
Hmm.
where gas prices are and the cost of travel.
Hmm.
That they really shouldn't be advertising those those
Cheap
freaking
travel
prices.
fares. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot garbage. And, Frontier is one that I will absolutely ream regarding not really fees, but just their handling of customer service. And my example, I know it sounds like you might have an example too, John, but
Hmm.
I'm going to lead right straight into my
Yeah.
freaking example. Um, had a flight from when we lived in Phoenix at the time. We flew out to Orlando, and that flight was just fine, no problems. Coming back, we had a nighttime flight from Orlando back to Phoenix, and that flight was delayed an hour. Then it was delayed another hour. Then it was delayed another hour. And then I believe the original flight was supposed to take off at 6 p.m. We got to 10 o'clock. Plane arrived. They blamed it on weather in Philadelphia, getting down to Orlando. Then we all get on the flight. Something happens where we took so long to board and the
Yeah.
pilot was sitting there. I guess the pilot went over his airtime mileage
His
and
crew hours or whatever it is.
yes, and could not fly. So then we all had to deboard the freaking plane. We got back off. Then they repeatedly told us for the next 2 hours from like probably 11 o'clock at that point to probably, let's say, 2 in the morning,
Hmm.
consistently saying, we're waiting on a plane. We have a plane coming.
Hmm.
Or no, no, no. You have your plane. We're waiting on a pilot. We're waiting on
Hmm.
a substitute pilot. Blah, blah, blah. We get to the point where it's 2 a.m. They're supposed to be offering you a hotel room. We asked for the
Yeah.
hotel room. They're like, oh, yeah, you can go. There's one 15 miles away, but your new flight's at 6 a.m. So it's like it's 2 a.m. already.
Yeah.
What's the point of going to a hotel, checking in, unloading your
Yeah.
stuff, and coming all the way back? You'd get like an hour there. Like, what's
Yeah.
the point of
If
that?
that.
If that. So,
Oh man.
yeah, no, that was absolutely horrific. The next day we got a flight back, but I mean, I missed a day of work and had to use more PTO for it,
Hmm.
and they couldn't give two issues about it. So,
Hmm.
hot garbage, terrible airline. I'm like you, I just ignore them is best. Who cares what the price is?
Hmm.
It's garbage.
Yeah, no, yeah. I have a similar story with Spirit, where it was going from LAX to Vegas. I think it was my sister's birthday quite a few years ago, and I think Vera and I were leaving work, so we left at a certain time. We were supposed to be there at like 7 or I forget what time, but it just like first of all like you mentioned, all the fees you have to pay, all the bags you have to pay, you even have to pay for your backpack. When I saw that, I was like, because it was the first time for me using Spirit, I was like, oh, it's cheap, it's affordable, let's use that. I was still trying to make money. Uh, but then I saw all that, I was like, no, I want to stick everything in a check-in bag and just not take anything. But the delays, I think we were delayed in the airport for like 4 hours and it was just miserable. No, nothing. And like I say, I think Spirit, Frontier, they're some of the airlines that get delayed the most. And the same thing with Frontier. I think I did Frontier once because it was affordable, and I think it was also from Florida to Cali. And everything they were charging for, I was like, "Are you guys seriously charging for my backpack?" I'm like, "That is fucking ridiculous." Like,
Mhm.
it's my backpack. Like, nobody else charges for it. And like you say, I think the big thing is if you're going to charge for everything, just char charge more for your tickets and not give us these surprise hidden fees because that's what this is. They say it isn't, and they say they're economical trying to save money, but you're charging more money. Like I could enjoy a better flight on American Airlines, get some snacks at least and water, where you guys don't provide anything, and the table trays are like this
Ah,
small where you can barely put anything. I remember the first time going on that, I was like,
yep.
what is this tray? Like not even my phone fits.
The seats too. It's like a city bus in the sky. You're sitting on
Yeah.
plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot garbage. It's
It it
really
is
bad.
it is horrible. So like for me, like when I travel nowadays, and like I say, everybody else has their experience. I know there's a lot of people that still use it because if you find the loopholes and how you could get away without paying all the additional fees, good for you. Good for taking the chances on hopefully flights not getting delayed. But for me, I'm gonna pay top dollar. I'm not gonna pay
Mhm.
first class, but I'm gonna pay for a good airline, something I know I'm not gonna get there and get told like, okay, you gotta pay extra for XYZ.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Traveling's already stressful enough, especially
Hmm.
if you have little ones and there's just a lot going on. International
Hmm.
flights is another thing. You passports, you don't want to lose
Yeah.
anything, it's a huge headache to travel these days. And the last thing you want to worry about is the way your airline's going to treat you. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think it's just worth the extra dollar, but just having that confidence in your
Hmm.
airline to leave on time or
Hmm.
at least be provided a great service. That's number one.
Yeah. Do you think Capitol Hill can even do anything about these hidden charges? Do you think they even have any power to make a change or?
I would hope so. I'd lean towards maybe no. I think it just takes the American people a lot of times just to
Mm.
stop using them.
Yeah.
That's personally like, I mean, you've learned your lesson, I've learned my lesson.
Hmm.
I think that might just be what it takes is learning through experience sometimes.
Hmm.
But even then, some people just dabble back into the airline again. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I hope there is a way they can restrict it and bring a little bit more to it. I just think that in this day and age, across the board, there's a lot of greed with corporate
Hmm.
America and pricing and things like that. So, um, yeah, I just think transparency goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope they can make a change. I hope there's a change just in general, because I
Hmm.
go back to thinking of when I traveled as a kid and with my mom, we would travel to Maryland a lot because we had family over there. And I, it's so vivid in my mind, these memories with my sister and my mom that we would travel, we go on an airline and literally there were so many open seats that me and my sister, we would just be running around the plane while up in the air because there was nobody there. I'd take up a whole row just chilling. And it's like, you don't have that ability because airline travel is so popular now and everybody's doing it. It's more affordable. More people are just doing it even after all the, 9/11 stuff. And, in my mind, it's like you guys got to make it comfortable because it's something that we also have to use.
Yeah, absolutely. So many people use it for work and just,
Hmm.
fly daily, weekly, you name it. Um, Yeah, my dad was a big traveler
Hmm.
growing up. He would travel, God, 2, 3 times out of the month. He would go back east, go to Chicago, Texas at times.
Hmm.
He'd be all over the place, mainly back east. But
Hmm.
I just remember how well versed he would be. If we went on family vacations, and he would just be prepped to the nines, and
Yeah.
just so lackadaisical about the whole process, and it just
Hmm.
brought a bunch of confidence into what air travel is. And I
Yeah.
just think, like you mentioned, a lot has changed since those
Hmm.
days, and um, it's a lot more recreational travel than ever,
Hmm.
because people can travel maybe a little bit less for business, I feel like,
Yeah.
just based off of telecommunications and
Hmm.
things like that. But um, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I feel like they decreased the amount of flights there are now, so they want to make sure it's a full flight. And
Yeah.
I just feel like every flight I've been on lately, I always hear, "Hey, we're at capacity, so make
Yeah.
sure that, everything's stored above and
Uh-huh.
as much as you can and blah blah blah."
Yeah.
So,
Or if you
yeah,
wanna take the next flight, we'll give you $400 in airline bucks, and
of
everybody's like, hell no.
course. Yeah, exactly. Everybody just wants to freaking get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, yeah, that's funny. I think the one thing I remember, and I don't know, you tell me, Tim, I don't know if it was a Hispanic thing, but as a kid,
Uh,
I remember my parents, we'd always be dressed up going to the airport. Like I'd always wear a nice dress shirt, tucked in shirt, and where nowadays I have to wear hoodies, sweats, comfortable shoes, just covering everything. It's just I always reflect on traveling as a kid, and now I'm like, man, why was I always dressed up? Like, why did my parents make me look so fancy going on a plane? And I think it was just like what it was back in the day. It was a luxury.
Yeah, no, and I think that was pretty traditional back in the day. I feel like growing up, we'd always dressed based off of the destination we were going to. We did a Hawaii trip when I was young, and I'd go in like a button-up Hawaiian shirt,
Yeah.
with shorts on or whatever and sandals, and then you're prepped for vacay, and it just kind
Yeah.
of gets you in the mood for that. But yeah, no, I'm one. Comfortability is number one, especially on a
Yeah.
plane. And then you have to take your shoes off
Mhm.
through security. So go with shoes that are easy to take on and
Oh, yeah.
off. Like you just got to prep that way.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, no, it seems much less formal.
Yeah. I think TSA is like a whole other topic we could talk about for
Ah,
hours of,
we could,
of
we could
how
definitely.
those go. But I think one of the last things I think a question I had for you, Tim, and for you to share, being a dad now of two, tips of traveling with kids. It's something I'm gonna have to start practicing with Keanu. We want to start traveling more, but what are some tips you would give to new parents, people that haven't traveled with kiddos that have kids that want to look into traveling?
Yeah, so number one, I'll shout my wife out. She's absolutely phenomenal with prepping. And it kind of brings about number one of prep.
Yeah.
Diaper bags,
Hmm.
snacks. Obviously you can only bring so much through security, but just knowing what you can bring through security, and just having it prepped accordingly. If your baby takes formula,
Hmm.
I guess maybe not making sure it's in a liquid form and maybe more of, or at least a small enough container to bring
Hmm.
it through, but it's a necessity. So, preparation's huge. And just having travel materials. So like, if we have I think like three different types of strollers in our house. We have a double stroller, we have a regular stroller for our youngest, and then we have a stroller that like really folds down and it's easy to maneuver, it's
Hmm.
lightweight, and kind of more of like a cheapo stroller, but
Hmm.
it's perfect for exactly that.
Yeah.
It keeps our daughter in there, and it's easy to push along. Obviously, there's long walks
Hmm.
in airports, things like that.
Yeah.
And just prepping for the flight itself, and a lot of flights nowadays have, in flight entertainment with
Hmm.
TVs and stuff like that, which is great. But um, just toys, tablets, to an extent is
Hmm.
good. Small games that you can play with them, keep them
Hmm.
occupied. I know I already talked about snacks, get ready to pay for some after
Hmm.
security. And as a dad, a big one that I probably haven't done enough, but like, it is important is honestly stretch. Get limber, John. Stretch
Okay.
out the arms, the back, because I for one I don't really like my wife like having to lift a lot. Like I just like would
Yeah.
rather do it myself and just,
Hmm.
just kind of put everything through the conveyor belt and just prep all that. And she can
Hmm.
worry about, the kids and pushing them through and getting through security, blah, blah, blah. But it's a lot of lifting at times.
Yeah.
It's all of the luggage, keeping track of
Hmm.
all the luggage. I've come up with this thing where we all have these, like everybody else have like the four-wheeled
Hmm.
really luggage. I put them back to back and I'll have
Hmm.
two in each arm and just kind of walk with them. And
Yeah.
it's coming up with stuff like that and just being kind of creative.
Hmm.
But stretching's huge because the next day you will be low-key sore because it's like, man, you're walking through the whole
Hmm.
airport. And yeah, and then just getting there early, just making sure you have
Hmm.
enough time because the stress of time is brutal. I'd rather be at an airport
Hmm.
3 hours early than, you know, 30 minutes early.
Hmm.
It would freak me out and
Yeah.
just it reduces stress.
That's
It's
funny.
it's a big deal. But
Okay.
if we can, we typically opt to drive. If we're going to
Hmm.
SoCal like we do often, we'll take the truck down.
Hmm.
I'd pack a cooler and just have stuff ready, and then you don't have to worry about it. It's just a little bit longer amount of time to
Hmm.
travel, but you can go at your own
Hmm.
pace.
Yeah. You got pit stop, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. Have
Okay.
you guys done a lot of travel with Keanu yet, or no?
J just by car. I think we've gone the
Okay,
furthest San Diego.
okay,
So,
yeah,
pretty simple. Like I said, I think we planned it a lot around his sleep schedule. So when he naps,
sure,
we're driving.
yeah,
I think when we went to Disney, we left Disney like right when he was ready to go to bed, and we got home, transferred him to his crib, and simple. So yeah, no, I think it is a lot of that. I'll start stretching a few months before I know I gotta travel, because yeah,
yep,
I know it gets pretty hard, especially those seats. They're not the most comfortable, even the nice
no,
airlines. So, and having a kid, I think it's a lot harder. So, yeah, and I'm also one, you could ask Vera, I like being at the airport a lot earlier. I'll just
yep,
chill there, go eat, walk around. So
yep.
the stress of not having to be rushing, it's better for me.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm one that like there's lots to look at an airport. I'll watch some
Yeah.
planes land,
Yeah.
I'll walk through shops, like,
Yeah.
but just knowing I have the time on my hands is
Hmm.
100%. And you bring up a good point though about nighttime travel. We do that too. We're going to be doing it this upcoming week here, and leaving at night allows the kids to fall asleep. And
Hmm.
then, the only downside to that is, you get to your destination and then they're automatically like
Yeah,
re-energized,
awake.
and then
Yeah.
you're exhausted because you just finished driving X amount of
Yeah.
hours. But you'd prefer that for the drive itself because then you're
Mhm.
just kind of focused on the road and
Yeah.
stuff. So nighttime travel is another good one. Just making sure, as an adult you're prepped with, you know, caffeine to an extent and
Hmm.
just ready to go. So
Catch
yeah,
you through it.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, for
Absolutely.
sure. But yeah, but that's airline traveling, it's the holidays. Anybody traveling, please be safe. Give yourself some time. These airports are crazy now. TSA. Like I said, we could save that for another week because it's a big conversation going through those TSA security check lines. If you got pre-check, I love it. Gonna always go do
Oh yeah. I need
it.
to do that. That's smart.
Yeah, so but another it sort of has to do with traveling, but in a different sense. Drone traveling and drones over New Jersey. So there were multiple drones over New Jersey. Over I don't think it was this past weekend. It was like 2 weeks ago, maybe something like that.
As
Or
far as
was it?
drones go,
Yeah.
no, it's
Was
like
it
up
this
till
past week?
now. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's very lively. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
hmm Very active
So,
situation.
I know Tim's probably looked into it more. Our buddy Rob,
Too
who's been
much.
on the episode a bit, is very into it. There's a lot of videos I've seen. Some of them, were debugged. I think the one video I talked to you a little bit about before was the radio station sort of saying it was alien
hmm
talk, but it was just slowed down radio talk. But what are your thoughts on the drones over New Jersey, Tim?
Yeah, and we've prefaced this before, and I know I've spoken to it. We had a whole episode on aliens
Hmm.
and UFOs. It was a ton of fun. But I'm one that like conspiracies these days to me are just really not that far-fetched anymore
Hmm.
because a lot happens. And this is one of them. I at first at first glance, I feel like I've looked in the sky before and I see lights in the sky and I'm like, is that a star? It's stationary. Is it moving? Planes that are in your line of sight heading towards you look like they're not
Hmm.
moving at all until they get a lot closer.
Yeah.
Um, so I think in general, with this situation in particular, I think it's causing a lot more people to look up at the sky and kind of
Hmm.
realizing all that's going on up there.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of it's natural travel. You're somewhere on the East Coast with New Jersey, for example.
Hmm.
You have so much European travel over there, up and down the East Coast, LaGuardia, JFK. Like
Hmm.
those are just such active airports. They're huge
Hmm.
hubs. So, and then you have military bases all around too, and you have this hustling, bustling city of New York City. So there's a lot of
Hmm.
helicopters and that type of travel these days. But the drones are definitely there, and it's been spoken about by
Hmm.
politicians, leadership in this country. Trump
Yeah.
spoke on it today. Don't know if Biden's spoken on it too much, but it's gotten national news. It's more,
Hmm.
some things I'm like, man, is this like TikTok news or is this gonna get like, CNN, Fox
Yeah.
News? Like, is this up there? And this has gotten up there. Like,
Yeah,
this
it's up
is
there
a
now.
big deal. And kind of looking into it, I feel like from the videos I've watched, I feel like I've seen like three or four videos in particular that kind
Hmm.
of like they're like this is for sure what it is, and they're all different. So everybody kind of has like their big thing,
Hmm.
but the big things out there right now, just kind of recap things is which I believe all along is that they're if they're military or not, the military knows about them and
Hmm.
they have said they're not a threat. So they know what they are. So,
Yeah.
and they have flashing lights on them often. So
Hmm.
they're, within FAA regulations and operable. And even if they're not, they're tracking down who owns them. I think somebody in Massachusetts got in trouble
Uh,
and arrested yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, they sent one of their personal drones up to try to track to see what's in the sky.
hmm.
If they can track down the individual who's doing that, they freaking know who has nine drones up in the sky right now.
Yeah.
Like, let's be realistic. So, but the big thing is I feel like everybody knows what the drones are,
Hmm.
but what are they doing is
Hmm.
the big thing. And the main ones I've heard is plasmoids. That's a big one right now. And the
Okay.
plasmoids theory is They are NASA-based drones tracking these plasmoids, which I guess are considered a form of life now,
Hmm.
and seeing how they react on our Earth. And I
Hmm.
guess they're man-made because there's a big laboratory actually in New Jersey, from what I've heard, that creates these plasmoids. Some people say
Okay.
that these plasmoids got released accidentally. Some say that they are naturally released to see as a like a scientific
Yeah.
experiment to see how they're reacting. And there's footage of like a drone spraying something on it to see what it
Hmm.
would react like, and it almost looks like a beam ready to extract somebody from a house, like you'd see in a movie.
Oh shit.
It looks crazy. I'll try to find the clip to send to you,
Okay.
John. But um, there's crazy footage out there, and it
Hmm.
doesn't look like a deep fake. It looks realistic. At least that one I saw. So yeah, there's the plasmoid theory, and then there's other ones where they're tracking nuclear material.
Hmm.
Some people are saying nuclear material went missing, and they're trying to
Hmm.
find it. And these are nuclear sniffing drones, basically using
Wow.
infrared to try to track things like that. Because I think drones can do
Hmm.
that these days. They act like, drug sniffing dogs in the
Yeah.
sky. It's which is pretty cool technology, I guess.
Yeah.
And then some are saying that these plasmoids are unearthly, and that brings us into the quantum chip that was newly developed by, I believe, Google.
Hmm.
And it has released a lot of information that basically we live in a multiverse, like a Marvel.
Hmm.
And there's infinite or millions, who knows how many
Yeah.
versions of what we're living now. So, um, and then that theory dives deep into artificial intelligence, which you and I have talked about on this
Yeah.
podcast, and which is a really interesting one, which I'm really not doubting, where artificial intelligence has now reached a point where it can communicate with the multiverse. And it's communicating to the extent that it's bringing life forms from other universes.
Oh,
I know this sounds crazy, into ours. And that's where
much?
people think these plasmoids are coming from.
Okay.
So I think that I that's not so far-fetched for me. I feel like that is
Mm-hmm.
legitimate. In to back that up too, I guess there was an AI, I don't know if it was an AI robot or what it was, but they tried to deactivate it, and it literally ran away in fear. Like it said, like it developed feelings,
Oh man.
and didn't want to be, you know,
Deactivated. Shut
reactivated.
down, whatever.
So if it can choose to do that, I think AI is above any type of human ability, and I could see it being able to communicate with other multiverses and maybe
Hmm.
ones that are more advanced than what we have.
Hmm.
So coming here isn't really so far-fetched. I don't
That's
know.
crazy.
I think that is a very crazy theory, but I one that's believable to me.
Ye-
Um, so out of the three, I really like that one. I think that one's
mhm.
fascinating. The plasmoid one, I believe, where NASA's researching plasmoids and how they
Mhm.
react with us. I don't know what they do with the plasmoids or what their purpose
Yeah.
is. And then the last one is the nuclear thing. Um, I don't know if that's I feel like we've had that tech for a while, to be honest
Hmm.
with you. I don't know how relevant that would be right now, but I think the other ones just seem cooler. So I'm
Yeah.
leaning with those ones. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the other ones seem cooler. Like I say, I haven't heard much. I know the military has said they really aren't giving much, but like I think out of the three you shared, the one that I'm curious and maybe a little bit concerned is if it's nuclear threats just because of all these other nuclear things happening overseas, like if there really is nuclear material that is out there, what is it being used for? I think is a big question for me.
Mhm.
If that's the case, if it isn't that, the plasmoid thing, that one's very interesting, especially if they developed it. Why are they releasing something they don't even know is how it's going to react into the world? Because my thought is if it reacts negatively, how is that going to affect those people that are living in that area? Um, and then the AI, I think AI is just scary and it's very true and it it's one of the big concerns. I think I see a lot of movies, I'm a movie buff and seeing AI in movies of what they do, it's sounding like we're heading that way and a little concerning, if there's AI robots already running away for the fear of their lives, developing those feelings and having a multiverse isn't, for me, it isn't far-fetched. I've always thought there are either us doing a podcast right now in different universes, different
Mhm.
languages, different topics, whatever's popular in that multiverse. And I don't I think we talked about it with Rob. I don't think we'll ever experience it in our lifetime or our kids' lifetimes, but eventually I think we will have some more knowledge about all that. But I think we're still a little fars away, but there's a lot of stuff we're doing with AI, with technology that's getting us closer to it.
Yeah, it's just it'll be fascinating like when we're God bless 90 plus years old,
Hmm.
looking back on like where we are then compared to what we grew
Hmm.
up with. I just feel like technology in general has just exponentially grown and it
Yeah.
continues to do so. Like in my life, obviously you're on the same track as me, John,
Hmm.
but like the cell phone, just the development of that, like
Hmm.
it's cool and it's very fascinating how much it's progressed, but
Hmm.
it hasn't really like popped my eyes. Like it's just
No.
like it's kind of expected.
Hmm.
The one thing in my life right now that I'm just shocked at is AI. Like
Hmm.
I'm just astonished. Like I know I sent you a funny like AI clip the other day of
Yeah.
this guy with a filthy house, and it was
Uh-huh.
just a funny thing. But how realistic does that look? Like
Yeah.
it blows my freaking mind. And then I saw
Hmm.
one with shout out Queso. You're
Oh
an
yeah.
awesome streamer, funny
Yeah.
dude. Um, they did an AI thing of him
Hmm.
running into a Waffle House. But it's crazy, how realistic it looks in the beginning, and then he runs through like a door,
Hmm.
so it looks
Yeah.
fake after a while. But like, just the realism
Hmm.
in where it's getting and how quick it's gotten to this point
Hmm.
from when like we first hear about AI and AI generation with people
Hmm.
using it for resumes or things like that or
Yeah.
finishing your homework. But it's progressed to now like movie making and like there's a podcast that was AI and they realized that
Hmm.
they're
AI.
AI.
Yeah.
I think that's insane to me.
Yeah.
And I just don't doubt that theory with the quantum chip and
Hmm.
what that's unleashing and how much forward progress in technology that's going to provide is a lot to be seen, but it's also kind of it is scary. And then going back to like what you mentioned with nuclear stuff, John, a crazy theory that has it's still in my mind about this. Now, I'm no expert on this. This is just stuff I'm reading on freaking the internet.
Yeah.
But, obviously it's factual that back in the day when we were first developing nuclear weapons, it was often tested in the ocean.
Hmm.
So then, we had Rob on and it
Hmm.
was garnering a lot of news and attention. I feel like maybe a little bit before we did that podcast, but then it was like really escalated
Yeah.
when, they went to Capitol Hill, like the day after we filmed.
Yeah.
And they started talking about how AI life is real or
Hmm.
alien life is real, UFOs
Yeah.
and things like that, and then how they are possibly in the oceans.
Yeah.
So the theory was regarding that I've read is that those nuclear explosions weren't tests and that we were having a war against them in the ocean. Just
That's
imagine.
That's crazy. And it makes me sort of think of Godzilla, how in the movies
Sure.
they were saying, oh, it's nuclear testing, but it was to try to fight and kill Godzilla. Have
Yeah.
we been doing that with aliens in the ocean and just having these wars without people really knowing that we're at war?
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's it, 100%. And we all think of space and how much unknown there is.
Mhm.
But then like we're always told from like grade school
Mhm.
and all the way up and through high school, college,
Mhm.
how much of the ocean's unexplored. Lately, I've really like kind of taken that thought in my mind, like where
Mhm.
they say like what 90% of the ocean's still unexplored.
Hmm.
It's like that is literally in outer space, I feel like. You know,
Hmm.
outer space is obviously probably much less traveled than that, but
Hmm.
like um that's on our home turf. Like that's
Yeah,
here
that's crazy.
that we don't know. So like if there's a civilization way deep down where we can't reach,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Or if there's some sort of like wormhole, black hole that takes you to a different multiverse, a different solar system, things like that, like that we don't know about. And that's how, these aliens are traveling between planets and universes and galaxies. Like, yeah, there's so much unknown to the ocean. I've always been so intrigued with oceans, very scared of it too because of that unknown. Like it's the one thing I will never play around with is the ocean. I respect the ocean
Yep.
because it's scary because it's just so unexpected. It's funny though, because like Keanu, he for some reason he loves the water. He loves the ocean. So it's something we're gonna have to get very used to,
It's great.
teaching him to be safe with it. But yeah, the ocean, it's one of I think the biggest mysteries we probably will have for such a long time until we get technology to really be able to explore it. Because I think there's been a lot of people trying. I think we saw the incident with the Titanic submarine going out to look at the Titanic. They developed something, but it's still very faulty because you make one mistake, you're not going to survive it. Nothing's going to survive it. So there's still a lot to be learned about it. And like you say, the military has done a lot. Who knows what they have explored and just haven't said to us.
For sure. Yeah, they always say whatever you see right now is
Yeah.
years behind what they actually have.
Hmm.
And I truly believe that. Um, you know, and I just feel like this drone thing is just the epitome of um people, the general public finally paying attention,
Hmm.
in my opinion. You know, I also read, take it for what you will. I know I've referenced Reddit in the past, but for the most
Yeah.
part, it's real people
Yeah.
saying things. It's but there's this guy on there that it was attached to what people think these drones are in New Jersey, and he said that he lives back east, and every single morning it's pitch dark outside, but he gets up early for work, like at 5:30.
Hmm.
It's still dark. He'll go out, he'll have a coffee and a cigarette, I think, out by his outhouse, like his
Hmm.
detached storage or garage. And
Yeah.
then he'll just like lean back in a chair and look up at the sky. And then for the most part, he said he saw like planes,
Hmm.
helicopters, you name it. But, for years, he would say that he would always see things moving through the sky that he did not know. He would have to
Hmm.
like lean his eyes at and squint and kind of try to realize like what that was. And he just kind of chalked it up like, I just don't know what that is,
Hmm.
but hey, if it's up there, somebody knows what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so I just think it's probably been going on for a while,
Hmm.
and then people are like, "What WTF?" Like,
Hmm.
hello, look at all that's going on in the sky. It's a lot more active than it's ever
Hmm.
been before, and maybe this is just leading up to what the future holds.
Yeah.
They have I guess one thing that was kind of they tried to say it was a UFO was actually a passenger drone
Hmm.
that some rich person in Malibu had, and they used that as a source of travel.
Oh,
I guess it's like one of five in the US or the
boy.
world. Obviously you have to be a very unique individual to obtain
Hmm.
one. But it was new to anybody looking at it, and it
Hmm.
looks crazy. It looks futuristic. That's just where we're at though. Like
Yeah.
people have stuff that we haven't seen. So,
Hmm.
oh, to be rich.
Yeah. It's crazy because like I saw some of the videos of how big those drones were over New
Oh
Jersey,
yeah.
and I'm I'm not fully surprised, but at the same time I am that we really do have technology that's it's like the size of a car, a drone. And I'm just like, I always just imagine them being able to hold it in my hand, something maybe a little bigger
Mhm.
than my hand, but there's these drones that are big and huge. And I'm just like, man, what are you guys really doing with that? Why
Yep.
do you need a drone that big up in the air where you mostly need it for like what I think about it, movies, getting some cool shots. You know, you don't need a big old car traveling in the air that fast for some clips.
Sure. Yeah, no, and another thing going back to the ocean theory real quick too, is that people have kind of referenced that they think there's a mothership offshore that is releasing these and that
Mm,
they just continue to go back because they say most of the drone travel is coming from the ocean. Now,
mm,
that could just be, you know, they're
mhm.
flying to the ocean, they're not tracking where they originally start, and then they just come
Yeah.
back on shore. Who knows? Evidently, our government
Mhm.
and military has enough confidence to say that they're not a threat to the American public. But nonetheless, there's no answers, so I just think everybody's uneasy
Yeah.
about it. Because on the West Coast, there's sightings too, where we're at.
Yeah.
So it's been too cloudy for me to go out and look.
Hmm.
But once it is clear, which might not be this whole week until we get down to SoCal. So maybe once I'm down there, I'm gonna
Yeah.
look and see what I see because I've been let you know, John, that I've been talking to Rob a lot about this,
Yeah.
and he says that it's very active down there too,
Hmm.
from what he sees, and he referenced this. I know we mentioned the in the episode we had him on. He mentioned this to me like over a year ago now, or about a year ago now,
Hmm.
about drones in the sky. So I
Yeah.
will give him his props. He called it. So
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I think it's fascinating. The drones, the technology, what they're there to do. At first, I was like, man, they're prepping for their New Year's Eve party with these drones to make up some
oh
cool
yeah.
light shows, but I don't know. I think it might be a little bit more than that.
I did see something similar to that somebody said that they're drones working on advertising in the sky. How crazy would
Mm-hmm.
that be? Where like they just have designs now? Like I don't know, that just seems so like Hunger Games-ish
Yeah.
or so futuristic it's crazy.
Yeah.
Um Kind of cool
No.
though.
No, yeah, it's really cool. And I think I saw like what they do with drones. I think in like Japan or Shanghai, how they make like fireworks out of drones and stuff. Like the
Oh yeah.
technology for drones is awesome, but like I say, it's also pretty scary, especially like those big ones, because it's like, what do you really need car-sized drones for? You
Yep.
know, so military, they say, like you say, they say it's not a threat. Whenever I hear that, I think it is a threat because I've seen the movies where they're like, don't worry about it, even though we're building these secret bunkers for all high
Yep.
personnel while we're just lying to you guys. So I hope it isn't that way. I hope these movies are just making stuff up and there really isn't a threat, but it's something I think that puts us all on edge and really makes us think more. And like you say, it's really out there a lot more and more people are really paying attention to it because it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good that the general public is becoming more aware of
Hmm.
surroundings because no matter what it is, I always preach situational awareness. Doesn't matter if
Hmm.
you're in a crowded concert hall
Hmm.
or, looking up in the sky at things you have no control over,
Hmm.
but it's always good to know.
Yeah.
It's important. We live in California, earthquakes happen. Um, just a week and a half ago, we had a tsunami warning up here in
Hmm.
NorCal. Nothing happened, but
Yeah.
are you prepped for it?
Mhm.
It's important. It can happen so
Yeah.
quick. So
Yeah. And you guys had a tornado this past week too, huh?
we
Or
did. Oh, I got to show
yeah.
you footage of that. Yeah, there's one down towards Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Flip cars. It was a
Yeah, I saw
legit
that. I
tornado.
saw some of the videos. I was like,
Man,
dang.
yeah. No, it was Scotts Valley. Yeah, no, it's crazy. We actually just drove
Hmm.
through there, but for back in September.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, the weather up here
Hmm.
has been really gnarly. We've gotten a lot of rain, but and the wind was crazy, but no
Hmm.
tornadoes in my neck of the woods. But
Yeah. Like I
yeah.
said, yeah. So that situational awareness, like you mentioned, always be
Yep.
prepared. We never know what could happen. We hope nothing ever happens, but the reality of it is who knows? It's all a mystery. So just be
Hmm.
safe out there, be aware, look up at the sky, you see some drones, just keep an eye on it, see what it is, question it because it's normal to question and have those questions about it. So if you guys have any drone activities, videos, that aren't like those mainstream ones that you think are very interesting, share it with us. We'll look into it a little bit more. We got
Yeah.
Rob, who we could say is our expert UFO drone,
He is. At this point, absolutely.
ho guests that we could go to and talk about it. So very cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely clip this out. So yeah, like John said, tell us your thoughts on like what you guys think it is. Because everybody's has
Hmm.
an open opinion about it, and some of the topics are fascinating and maybe not so
Hmm.
scary versus things that are maybe frightening. So
Hmm.
hey, everybody has the right to an opinion, so we're curious to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. The one videos I'm getting a lot right now are the Appalachian Mountains. I don't know why. They're just popping up on my
Oh, those are
feeds.
fun, but they're very creepy.
Yeah.
Skinwalkers and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're freaky, but they're just
It's
popping
because
up. I think
you're
we
probably
talk.
like me, John. You just keep watching them and you
Yeah.
watch the full length. And so
Yeah.
you just keep getting it over and over
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Because after I watch one, I'm like, man, I'm getting a lot of these. I don't want to stop.
I
I
know.
gotta find
Yeah,
my
it's addicting.
comedy ones.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah. But yeah, let us know your guys' thoughts, videos you guys have. Like I said, we're always interested. We enjoy this, talking about it, just having our thoughts and ideas. Um, but yeah, but that's our episode for today. Thank you to all our subscribers that have subscribed. We're up to, I think, close to 240.
Yeah.
So maybe a little over. I haven't checked it recently, but thank you to you guys. We really do appreciate all of you, all our listeners. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We really would appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button, leave comments, good or bad, like I say. A lot of our takes, what we'll say is we like to share it. What why we created Banter on the Rocks is to really just have these conversations, banter a little bit about it. We do share some facts, info we get, but a lot of it's just our opinion, our thoughts. Sometimes our thoughts and opinions are very out there. You know, we sort of called Bears Raiders making it to the playoffs when we knew it was probably a far-fetched idea and happening, but we always share that stuff. So we appreciate all the comments, all the feedback. And like we've always mentioned, if you really want to ever join the episodes, have something to talk about, let us know. We'll bring you on. We'll set up some time, see what topics you want to talk about, and we'll just have some chats and banter a little bit about it and have a good time. Um, so yeah, but thank you everybody. We appreciate you taking the time. Tim, as always, fun times talking about all this stuff. Always good conversations.
Always. Yeah. Always a pleasure, John. So much
Yeah.
fun doing this. Love to do it because it gets a lot off our minds. And,
Hmm.
another good one going back to the travel. We're on Apple Podcasts. So if you don't have time to watch us, you can at least listen
Hmm.
and maybe it'll get you through your flight. So
Yes.
thank you guys. Really
Yes.
appreciate all the engagement and you're subscribing and listening. So
Yes. Thank
not
you,
sure what John said.
everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next week for our, we'll call it our Christmas episode.
That's
With
right.
Christmas coming up.
Absolutely. Might have change of scenery for myself,
We
but
might.
I'm gonna bring it on the go.
Yes. But yeah, we'll see everybody next week. Have a good night.